Well, the U.S. Supreme Court just made a huge constitutional ruling that's going to cause liberty to break out throughout the land. Want to bet? I'm Scott Ott with Bill Whittle and Stephen Green, and this episode of Right Angle is brought to you by the members at BillWhittle.com. Well, gentlemen, it was a 6-3 ruling in a case brought by the state of New Jersey that overturned a 25-year-old law made back in 1992 that basically kept states from having gambling on sports. And the whole idea behind the original law back then was to protect the sanctity and the integrity of American sport, because we don't want to have, what was that, the alleged Black Sox scandal where the game was thrown because of
wasn't alleged
betting thing. Yeah, well, yeah. And Pete Rose's whole career gets an asterisk because of betting on baseball outcomes, even though they couldn't prove that he had ever bet or won on baseball outcomes, apparently. But this Supreme Court ruling basically says it's not just Utah anymore. If states want to, the federal government is not going to impede them from allowing and regulating and taxing sports wagering in their states. So, Stephen Green, I don't know whether my libertarian heart should go pitter-patter over the increased liberty, or my conservative heart should have an attack over the fact that now government is going to be able to get its hands on more of our money.
Wow, interesting. You should put it that way. I'd reword it just a little bit. I would say my libertarian brain and my conservative heart, and I don't mean that as a compliment or an insult to either one. That's just kind of how I work. Intellectually, I consider myself a libertarian, but when it comes to attitude and all of that sort of heart issue, that's where my conservatism comes out. But as a dedicated federalist, I do like this. As a native not as a native Coloradan, as a happy Coloradan, I hope our state doesn't go this route. Gambling doesn't interest me, but that will be up to the legislator and the voters of Colorado, as it should be. It's interesting. I think we've got some parallels here with marijuana legalization, and I would like for the Supreme Court to clear that one up, because we've got these laboratories of democracy, whether they're Colorado, Washington, California, Maryland, Washington, D.C., all these places now where marijuana has been legalized. But legally, it's still not quite legal, because Congress has written the law that says that which department has the DEA in it, not the DEA. But anyway, the executive branch actually gets to schedule drugs and say marijuana is this class and can't be sold at all, and so is cocaine. But the feds have the authority to move it from one column to the other and help the states out. What I would like to see is clarification on this issue as well. What I would like to see is a return to federalism on all of these issues. We've got 50 states, plus the District of Columbia, but we've got these 50 states with 50 diverse people, and the whole purpose of federalism was, how do you take a huge country and give it a Republican government? That's Republican with a small r, by the way. And the answer is, you give everybody enough elbow room that we can kind of cluster together and have our own mini countries within this one big country. And I think the Supreme Court has taken an important step along this route, even though personally I would rather not see sports gambling come to my town.
Yes, but Stephen Green, not so fast. Let me ask you, Bill Whittle. This is a quote from Sam Alito, Associate Justice Samuel Alito's ruling. By the way, he's a New Jersey native, and I think he should have recused himself from the entire case since it was brought by the state of New Jersey, but that's okay. Here's what he said in his what do they call that? Not the dissent, but his opinion in favor of the majority. I can't think of the right
opinion.
word.
Concurring.
Yes. So here's what he said. He wrote the opinion for the court, and he said Congress can regulate sports gambling directly, but if it elects not to do so, each state is free to act on its own. Our job, the court's job, is to interpret the law Congress has enacted and to decide whether it is consistent with the Constitution. So what makes me a little nervous about that, Bill Whittle, is this saying Congress can do this directly, can regulate directly, as they did with the 1992 law. How long do you think those guys in Congress are going to be able to keep their fingers off of this and not trample again the states' rights?
Ay.
Just the idea that Alito would say that Congress has the right to regulate gambling is just horrifically disappointing to me. I mean, honestly, this whole Commerce Clause
Commerce
thing to
Clause?
me has just been from the beginning has just been the use of the Commerce Clause to justify anything voids the Constitution, and to say that Congress can regulate commerce voids the Constitution. It says Congress the Congress has the right to regulate commerce among the states, foreign powers, and Indian tribes. And if you're not the state of Minnesota or a foreign power or an Indian tribe, it's got nothing to do with you. It can't touch you, and everybody knows it. So just that alone is disturbing. But to the larger issue about legalized gambling and so on, I'm with Steve on the federalism thing. Frankly, yes, 100% states should be able to decide. But to be honest with you, I don't see how it's any of the state's business what I do with my money. I really don't. And it doesn't make gambling go away. It's not like it's not going to be there. This whole idea of trying to stamp out vice with legislation is contrary to the American idea, I think. I mean, my whole understanding of this idea of government would be that we would leave people alone because we have a basically virtuous population, and we shouldn't have to penalize the virtuous for the acts of the criminals. So, yes, if you want to gamble your life away and your kids' college funds away, that's a catastrophe and a tragedy, but having a law there won't stop you, and all it will do is prevent people who don't do these things from being free. So, as we found in prohibition, there are some things that you simply are not able to control, and you shouldn't even want to. This is the whole idea. It's not a question of whether prohibition would have worked. It's a question of it was morally wrong to tell people, no, you can't come home and have a beer because some people beat their wives, and therefore, no, we'll decide what's better for you.
Hey.
Just one last thing on this, and then I'd love to talk to you about it. But the one thing you're talking about, because you were talking about marijuana use earlier.
Yeah.
California is now in this kind of almost completely out of this gray area where you have to have a prescription in order to have marijuana use, which is as tough as getting I don't know. It's tough as getting a receipt. It's as hard as getting a receipt at Dunkin' Donuts, right? You walk into a clinic. You tell a doctor, I'm having trouble sleeping. Here's your prescription. Here's your legalized marijuana. If you drive down the streets of Los Angeles, Ventura Boulevard, for example, you will see more of these little green crosses, which are the marijuana clinics. There are more of them than Starbucks by far. I mean, it's every fourth building.
Wow.
And all I'm telling you is, as a resident of Los Angeles and California, marijuana is essentially completely legalized here. For all intents and purposes, anybody who wants it can get it. And I have not noticed a huge spike in people wandering down the road stoned out of their minds or marijuana-related traffic accidents, which is telling me simply this, that the people who wanted to smoke pot before this happened were smoking pot anyway, and the money was going to the Zetas and these horrible Mexican cartels. And now they're doing the exact same behaviors. I don't see any increase in the behaviors. And I'm starting to wonder what the whole point was.
Hey, Bill, let me throw something at you, though, because this goes beyond federalism down to local control. Here in Colorado, counties and cities are allowed to make their own rules that can be more strict than the pot legalization amendment in Denver. So, for example, if I wanted to buy pot, it's legal for me to do so in Colorado, but I have to drive all the way up to Denver to do it. It's about a 45-minute drive, something of an inconvenience, which if I were stoner, I would not want to do. But here in Monument, where I live, it is not legal to open a recreational pot store, or dispensary, I think is the word they prefer to use. So what do you think about having regulations kind of like we do for strip clubs? You have it in this part of town, but not that part of town.
Well, I think that ultimately, when you get right down to it, what my opinion of what people should do with marijuana, smoking, and gambling and stuff is my opinion. And other people have different opinions. And the entire purpose of a democracy is, of our republic, the idea should be that we should all be as free as possible, but we also have to live with each other. And that means we have to come up with common standards for what our behavior is in the larger society. I would like it if more people were tuned to saying, no, everybody should be able to do more or less what they want to unless they hurt other people. But again, that's my opinion. So if your county is composed of people who find this a terrible moral sin and they vote to say no, none of these things are allowed here, that's their right. That's their right. And if I don't like it, I'm probably not happy there anyway, right? I mean, it just.
Yes.
I mean, honestly, the reason I don't live in San Francisco is because I don't much like San Franciscan politics, and I don't like much about anything about that city, so I don't live there.
Always a smart move.
Of course, I don't like much of Los Angeles either, but here I am. But in any event, I think that we should be leaning towards maximum freedom and not punishing the innocent, and at the same time, there's a reciprocal responsibility that we have to our local communities. And so, to answer your question, I agree with you, but I think that mesh should be as fine as possible, meaning as local as possible. Meaning, if you have a county that wants to have legalized gambling and the next one doesn't, that's the way I like it. Shouldn't be on the state level, and it certainly should not be on a federal level.
Hey, and Scott, can you wrap this up? I have to make a little drive up to Denver here soon.
I'm so sorry that I've stretched this out longer than you expected, Steve. Yeah, I like any kind of law that would require stoners to spend more time on the road.
Right.
They gotta drive. So, it occurs to me, Bill brought up that point of, if you are engaged in drug use, then, the money may have been going to the Zetas or some, for that matter, Al-Qaeda, or some of the Muslim thug groups in Afghanistan, for example. In the gambling situation is similar. I mean, gambling has famously been run by organized crime for years, but if you put that into the hands of state government, then I guess you have the kind of organized crime that we all feel comfortable with, that we can, where
On
we
the
can.
contrary,
That's disorganized crime.
If the money were to go to the Zetas or to Al Qaeda, I think that's much preferable than to have it go someplace dangerous like Congress or Washington.
That's
New
right.
Jersey.
At least when the Zetas print their own money, they get busted for it. So, so I think this is a fascinating litmus test for what it means to be a principled person in the realm of politics. Will you approve of that which you despise if it enhances liberty? And do I think that gambling is a good idea? No, I think it's a horrible idea. I think people engage in gambling. I mean, essentially, what we're going to gain, those of us who don't gamble but do receive benefits from the state in some way or another, are going to actually, gain from this tax on stupidity. So there's a reason why they say the house always wins. I think that gambling is stupid and reprehensible. I think people are taken advantage of because of it. On the other hand, if this is what you do for entertainment, then I think you ought to be allowed to do that which is stupid, as long as you don't turn around later and reach your hand into the public till and say, okay, now I'm in trouble and I need help, and the government is compelled to support me in my habit. And that's what it's going to be. That's what you can see this coming to full flower as time goes on. More and more, this will become an entitlement where those of us who have this problem will be entitled to pull money out of the public treasury. So it's a fascinating quandary. Do I want the state of New Jersey or my state of Texas to have more money in their coffers so that they can blow it on ill conceived ideas? No. But I'm also reminded that at the founding of this republic, the framers of the Constitution pretty much thought that most of the income to the U.S. Treasury was going to come from taxes on imported whiskey and such like. So, there is nothing new under the sun. But I think it's one of those issues that allows us to think through our principles and to say, what do we really believe? Am I tolerant of things that I disagree with in the name of liberty? And I think the answer to that is yes. Now, do I like all the consequences of that? Yes. No. But I'd rather have the liberty than the alternative. For Bill Whittle and Stephen Green, I'm Scott Ott. Thanks to the members at BillWhittle.com for making Right Angle possible.